The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jenny Bregel from TechServe Alliance. Welcome to today's session of the 2016 Certification Webinar Series, Consultative Recruiting Presentation. There will be a question and answer session after the presentation, so feel free to write in any questions you would like to have answered in the question box on the right side of your screen. In the sidebar on your screen, under the Handouts tab, you will find the slides available for you to download. We will also be sending these out following the presentation. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be available to TechServe members on the Online Learning Center of the website. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Barb Bruno, President of Good as Gold Training. Barb?
Thanks, Jenny, so much. And obviously the topic, anything to do with recruiting, seems to be, extremely important to all of us, because in this candidate-driven marketplace, the candidates are basically in charge, and especially in the IT and engineering niches where there's such a high demand and low supply, changing your recruiting presentations and really, doing what you can to stand out is extremely critical, and that's why we chose this topic for today's topic. The market is candidate-driven. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, and so you have to change your approach with candidates. In recruiting, what we're trying to do is we're trying to basically bridge the gap from what you're presenting to the lives and needs and hot buttons of the recruits. But your candidates realize they are in the driver's seat, and they are more demanding. They're getting calls from multiple recruiters every week. And candidates, like significant others, need to be nurtured. They need to be cared for. And building strong consultative candidate relationships takes time and commitment, but has huge rewards. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, you know what, they won't even talk to us. In fact, they won't even send us their resume or CV. They want us to use their LinkedIn profile, rather than filling out any paperwork that we have, because they are being courted by so many other recruiters. How in the world am I supposed to build a strong candidate relationship when they're barely talking to me? Well, I want you to understand something, because I talk to, technology candidates all the time. I attend technology conferences. I speak at them, and I'm interacting with them quite often. And I always say, technology recruiters just don't feel that you want to take their calls. And they go, no, we will, but they can't call me during the day when my boss is standing behind me. That they have to understand what I do. I'm not going to work with someone that doesn't know what they're doing. They want you to sound different, and they would love to have a relationship, with a recruiter or two. The truth of the matter is most of the calls just sound identical, and they're tired of being bombarded by calls. And so that's the reason that often when you reach out, they're irritated, or they're barely talking to you, or they know they're in high demand. I mean, when you look at a .NET developer, they know that they're going to get 10 recruiting calls a week. And so there's things you can do to position yourself differently, to sound differently, where you will get that consultative relationship going with them, and hopefully, you can put them in a long-term, contract, or you place them in a job, and then when they're done with that, they come back to you for your help. Think about the lifetime value of these relationships with these, technology people that are in such high demand. Now, there's things you need to do prior to making a recruiting presentation. You can't just have a job or a contract and all of a sudden pick up the phone. You've got to know the contract and the job order inside and out. If you don't have percentages on your contract or on your order, you really don't know the job inside and out. Because what percentage of the time are they doing what at this particular job? If I'm doing something 90% of the time and all the other things are 10% of the time, that's a much different job than if all 5 areas of responsibilities take up 20% of my time. You've got to know the selling points of your company. You've got to give them information that they don't know. When you're talking to these clients, you've got to ask them, why do you work there? Why should somebody work at your company? Talk to people that you may have out there on contract already and get some inside information from an employee that only an employee has. Because the selling points, too often that we give are selling points that they can get on a website. But, you're talking to somebody who works there. You got the order or the contract from an employee of the company. Ask them to give you 3 things that are not on a website. that are really strong selling points for their company. You've got to understand the hot buttons of the candidates in your specialty area, whether you're placing engineers or programmers or developers or project managers, whatever you're placing. What are the hot buttons of the group of people that you specialize in? You know, what is most important to them? Because when you're making a recruiting call, it's all about them. It's really determining what they want, what they see as their next move, and then positioning your opportunity, you know, that fits what they want to do next. And so you've got to have that outside-in approach to business. You've got to understand their hot buttons, what's most important to them. If you sell too fast, if you start presenting a job and it's not at all what they see as their next logical career move, you've lost total credibility. And I believe in having scripts written out with your branding on it, you know, scripts that stress your expertise and your experience, because when you're doing recruiting presentations, basically it's not you doing all the talking. It's identifying what's most important to this person and then showing them how this opportunity will fit everything that's important to that. You're bridging that gap between where they are and where they want to be. It's also vital to put your recruiting efforts only into your hottest contracts and job orders. You know, chasing purple squirrels, working on Mission Impossible, working contracts that you know the money is too low for the experience that they're asking for, you know, that can turn out to be a real waste of your time. You know, and you only get paid, you know, if people start a job and they're working at the job. You know, and you've also got to be excited, not only about the opportunities you're representing, but about the company. Because when you're excited about something, it shows in your voice. You can't call somebody and say, I want to run something by you to see if you're interested. It's, you know, remember that job you described it to me when we talked that you saw as your next logical career move? It's sitting on my desk. I couldn't wait to pick up the phone and present this. This is exactly what you told me you wanted. You said this job has that. You said this job has that. You know, you've got to really know your job and your company well enough where you can tie in what the job's offering to things they said to you during your interview. And then you've got to anticipate any and all objections and be ready to overcome them, because people are naturally not going to agree with 100% of what you're doing. You know, and if you want to set yourself up as a consultative recruiter, then you've got to anticipate some of the objections. You've got to look at the opportunity through the eyes of the candidates that you're going to be presenting this to. And if you got the opening and you got some questions, then you've got to get answers to your questions before you get on the phone and start presenting this to somebody. Because if I'm a candidate and I know I'm in high demand and I'm asking you some questions and you don't know the answers to the questions, then I'm wondering why you're wasting my time. I'm wondering why we're even talking. Like, if you don't know enough about the company and enough about the opportunity to answer my basic questions, then I'm concerned, do you really know what you're doing? And is this really a match for me? Or are you just calling everybody in your database to see the first person that agrees with you and says yes? So it's so important to set yourself up as an expert, and it's doing these things that I've just listed. These 7 things are basically things you have to do before you pick up the phone. And you might say, well, you know, I'm making so many calls, I'm reaching out, you know, it's hard to be excited about everything that I represent. Well, you better be, because if you don't believe in something and understand something, you have somebody's life in your hands, whether they accept a 6-month contract, a 2-year contract, or a full-time job for you. This is where they spend most of their waking hours. And so we have an ethical and moral responsibility to do the right thing, to really understand. Don't assume that what they're doing now is what they want to do. You've got to find out from them, what do they want to do next? And then you bridge that gap. Now, there are certain motivators that are really the top motivators of the candidates that you represent in engineering and IT. It's the quality of life. It's the ability to excel at their job. They want to contribute to a project that matters. You know, they also want to enhance their skills because obviously, bottom line, they want to advance their career. So do they like to enhance their resume or CV? Of course they do. Location and money always play into it. You know, that's always a part of it. But really, the quality of life and contributing to something that they feel matters is a great motivator. But you've got to determine which one of these things are motivating each candidate that you're representing, or are there other things that are very specific to your candidate? Because you can't present an opportunity until you know what's motivating them to make a change, what is most important to every single person. You know, I gave you a list of 6 things here. You know, these are the major ones that are the motivators of the candidates in the engineering and IT niche, but there's others. and who, these are the main ones. But is there something else that is most important to them that you basically found out during your interview, and you've got to bring that up when you're presenting an opportunity to them. Because let people know you're listening to what they're saying. Anytime we're presenting an opportunity, we always say, in our interview, you had mentioned this. This job, when we were talking, you had shared that and share what they said was important. And this job offers exactly that. And so, you can prove that you're a good listener with these candidates if you requote what they said. And then you're also, as you're doing that, you're also showing them that this is a great match for them, that you really did listen. You really did take the time to figure this out. You are more consultative. You're not just calling 50 people and hoping that somebody says yes to an opportunity that you had. You bridged where they are now to where they want to be, and you think you've got an opportunity that's going to interest them. Because when you sound interested and you sound excited about it, believe me, even if the person on the other end of the phone isn't showing that same enthusiasm, they're going to enjoy the fact that you're enthusiastic and you've taken the time to make a really good match for them. The other thing is you've got to differentiate from your competition, because most IT and engineering candidates out there feel you're all alike. I do a call for job seekers once a month, and they don't know who I am, and they don't know I own a firm. They don't know I'm in this business. And so they complain about us to me all the time. It's kind of funny when I get the amount of these calls, and they'll say, these recruiters, they just call and they don't know what they're talking about. And what I've realized by doing these job seeker calls once a week for the last 2.5 years is it's interesting seeing the world through their eyes. And of course, I always position our profession better than what they feel about us. I try to overcome their objections and show them what they could do differently. But the key differentiator between you and your competition is you. The only thing your competition doesn't have is you. They've got the same candidates. They can say they specialize in a niche. They belong to TSA. Many of them can say maybe they're certified. I mean, they can use all the same things you can do. But what is it about you that you can basically share? Once you've identified what's most important to them, then you want to give them some information that brands you, that sets yourself apart. So what is it? It really is your track record of success. It's testimonials from satisfied candidates you've placed in the past. It's your personal level of commitment and passion. I mean, there should be testimonials under your email signature line from candidates. When you're emailing another candidate, they should be able to read testimonials under your email signature line from other candidates. People buy on the approval of others. Having somebody else tell them you're great is much better than you telling them that you're great. And the other person can talk from a level of experience of having worked with you. And so that's why testimonials are so important. But this is what your differentiator, this is your brand. If you can tell me, I placed 17 project managers since the first of the year. They're all in their jobs. I've placed over 40 project managers in the last 18 months with some of the best companies, in your area of expertise, and they're all still on their job. And I get a lot of repeat business based on the job I've done for people. I can share testimonials with you. I mean, when somebody's heard that you understand their world, that you've placed people just like them. And if you're new, what if you're new and you don't have a great track record? Use the track record of your office, of other people. How many years of experience does your entire office represent? Got to know that number if you're new, because you've got these other people also backing you as part of your team. And I think it's important for you to realize, because I'm interacting with these job seekers, every single week on the calls I do. I attend technology conferences, and the truth of the matter is most services that you offer are perceived the same by engineering and IT candidates, period. Most IT and engineering staffing firms are perceived the same, and most recruiters are perceived the same. They put us all in this little group, okay? You've got to strive for excellence. You've got to be creative. You've got to change your approach. There's no difference between you and your competition unless job seekers perceive a difference, and the responsibility to differentiate yourself is your responsibility. If you really want to represent the best people out there, if you want to get noted as the recruiter of choice, what is going to make somebody give your name out to every person they know that does what they do? What is going to make them become an ambassador for you, a little recruiter for you that's out there constantly sending talent to you? If you've been at this job more than 18 months, 50% of your candidates should come from referrals. And if it's not, then you really got to ask yourself why. Sometimes it's just that you're not asking for referrals, but other times it's just that the candidate didn't feel that you were really nurturing them, that you really cared about them, that you really understood what you were doing. You got them their next gig, and the next person that calls them will get them their next gig. They feel no alliance to you because they don't feel that you were consultative. They don't feel that you really cared about them and they can trust you. You know, a lot of candidates feel like a number. They feel like a commission check. You know, I'm making this recruiter money this time. The next one that calls me, I'll make them money the next time. Sometimes they just feel like a dollar sign. And they know that you're making money for every hour they work, but they've also got to realize that you care about them. Most recruiters also fall into the trap of repeating the same scripts, the same techniques every time you're on the phone. You know, what would happen if you tried some new ideas just to keep your presentation fresh and effective? You know, you can find ideas almost anywhere, including other professions. You may find an idea that can be applied successfully in recruiting in a completely different context. You know, you've got to mix things up. If you're making the same kind of calls over and over and over again, even you're going to get bored with them. And so let's talk about recruiting presentations that result in hits. Because when you're completing your recruiting presentation, you've got to keep certain facts in mind when you're actually doing these things in order for the other person to go through the trauma of a job change. And as much as they're changing more often than they ever have been before, job change is still traumatic. There has to be something of major significance that they don't like about their current situation, that they're going to make a change. And even if they're offered an extension of their contract, they're not going to take it. Money is always part of their decision, but you know, money is not the only reason for making a change. Often people quit other people rather than quitting the company. You might have put them with your best client. They don't like their boss. They don't like their manager. And they're going to leave because they don't like the person that they're working for. And how are you going to know that? You're only going to know that if you're following up with them after you put them out on a contract. You can't put them out and have the only time they hear from you is 90 days before their contract ends. Now they've already got another gig set up and they don't like you because they haven't heard from you. They just know they made you money for the last 9 months, year, 2 years. The more consultative you are with each candidate, the better chance you have of representing this person because they're going to just sense that you're different. Recruiting presentations are something that you've got to complete every single day without exception. Your clients expect results, and your reputation is on the back of every single person that you represent. And focused recruiting is the only way and the best way to satisfy the needs of your client companies. When I'm in front of hiring authorities, their biggest complaint, 2 complaints, that we all say we're different. Then when they ask us how we're different, we all say the same things. And the second complaint I hear from companies all the time is, why would I pay you to find me a candidate that my in-house people can find from job boards, from, you know, from just very common used sources? Why would I do that? Aren't you a recruiter? Aren't you supposed to go out there and recruit people we can't find? You know, don't you have access to this great network you've built over the years? Don't you have access to the hidden marketplace of talent? That's the talent that is working, but they'll make a change for the right opportunity. That's why we hire you. That's why we pay you the margins and the fees that we do. You know, they want you to represent people that they can't find on their own. And they absolutely complain to me all the time that we'll call 2 or 3 recruiting firms. And it's interesting because they're all sending us the same candidate. You can tell they're on the job boards. You can tell what they're doing because they've all got the same people, and they've got the same people we already have. So, you know, the reason we go outside is we want you to find new people. We would love for a recruiter to be building a network based on their reputation. Now, in order to improve results from your recruiting presentation, you know, obviously you need to plan and prepare. You've got to be, again, enthusiastic and knowledgeable about your opportunities, and you've got to set daily goals. Like, how many hits do you need daily to attain your individual production goals? You've got to know how many hits you need, because when you're out there making recruiting presentations, how many people, and a hit to me is, I'm going to send you my resume, let's set up an interview with you. So how many people send you their resume or CV and agree to a conversation later? Or maybe when you got them on the phone, you're trying to get that right now because they are so busy and hard to reach. And then how many of those hits turn into actual send-outs with clients, where a client actually interviews them face-to-face? And how many face-to-face interviews do you have to have before somebody's hired? You know, those are the numbers you have to know on the recruiting side to know what results you need every day. You've got to know your stats and your ratios. You have got to know your numbers, because if you don't know your numbers, you don't know what to do every day. And I don't care if your title is recruiter or consultant or whatever title you have behind your name, you're in sales. This is a sales job, and sales is numbers. And so do each of you know your numbers? You know, how many hits do you get before somebody's actually hired? How many? Because the hits go to interviews, the interviews go to presentations, the presentations go to send-outs, the send-outs go to fills or placements. So what are those exact numbers? Because if you don't know those numbers, you don't know what to do every day. You walk in every day and think, okay, I'm going to do my best. And believe me, you can go to work every day and be very, very busy and not consistently hit or surpass your goals. The only way you can alleviate slumps, the only way you can get great at what you're doing consistently, not a good month, bad month, good month, bad month. You can have consistently good months where you hit or surpass your goals if you know your numbers. And then you don't give yourself a break. If I know I have to interview 3 people a day, that's my number, then I'm going to book 5, because I know some people are going to no-show. If 3 is my number daily, I know I have to do 15 by the end of the week. And if I only do 2 today, I've got to do 4 tomorrow, because I've got to stay on that 3 a day in order to hit my goals. That's when the job actually becomes fun. That's when you take the mystery out of what we do, because you know exactly what you have to do. It's not a crapshoot every day. You know, obtain detailed information from your account executives, because you want to list names on your recruiting sheets also in order of priority. Have the clients given any names? Because sometimes they'll actually give us possible recruits, or, you know, are the current candidates in your database? What about reactivated contractors or candidates? You know, candidates from companies that the client likes. You know, what about names of past references? You know, supervisors of past candidates, or new names. You notice new names from the internet, you know, from other sources I list last, because the 2 best on this list obviously are if the client gives you a name, or they tell you companies that they want you to hire from, or you've got current candidates that you recruited as a result of another, you know, job you were working on. They fit this exactly. So you've got somebody readily available. You know, but you want to put these. You can only do this if you get input from the account executives, because only the account executives are going to know what companies this a hiring authority wants to hire from. The other thing, too, you've got to make sure that you identify, make sure that you know what companies that your hiring authority does not like. I do coaching calls once a week, and it was interesting. Somebody on one of our coaching calls on Monday was very upset because he had worked on a recruit. He had surfaced 3 great candidates, all from the same company. One was a past employee, 2 were current employees in different divisions, only to find out that when he presented him to his client hated the company and wouldn't hire anybody out of the company. He goes, so basically I've spent, you know, 5 days working on this, and I'm back at ground zero. Well, he should have known that before he went into it. What companies? Because if you present a candidate and you say they're great, even if they're great, if they come from a company that I have no respect for, I'm not going to interview them. So you wasted all that time, all that effort. You want to make sure you don't do that. Okay, the recruiting call itself. The greatest problem with most recruiting calls is they all sound alike. You've got to set yourself up as an expert in the IT and engineering profession who has access to great opportunities that are not advertised. You know, that is basically, you've got to go in feeling very good about yourself, that you are the person to work for. Share the personal brand to establish credibility. You know, let it be known that you place your reputation on every person you represent, so you only represent the best, the above average individuals in their profession. Because when you do that, you're inadvertently complimenting the person you're talking to, that you've identified them as one of the best. And your job is not to try to control the other person. I always cringe when I hear trainers say, develop candidate control, develop client control. You can't control another person. If they sense you're trying to control them, they're going to go the opposite direction of whatever you tell them to do. It's all about rapport based on trust. Let them talk about themselves. They like you better. You know, let them talk. Ask open-ended questions. Let them talk. If you're getting too many no's, then all that proves to me is you're asking closed-ended questions where they can answer yes or no. They can't say no to a question if you asked an open-ended question that basically encourages some type of response. And keep in mind that you have several goals in recruiting. If you don't get this person to say yes to you, you don't want to go, I'm such a failure. Okay, there's like 9 or 10 things that you can get your different goals in recruiting, and let me go through those right now. Obviously, first of all, is to convert the prospect into a candidate. Of course, you want to represent the person that's on the phone. But next, you want to get leads from this person to individuals or top talent or people that are networked well that you can receive leads from. You want to obtain their home email address and their cell phone number. And this is for future contacts. When somebody says no to you and you're recruiting, I'm not interested, I never hear no, I hear not yet. Everybody out there in engineering and IT can utilize your services if they're in the niche that you place. Maybe right now is not good timing, but down the road they will need your services. And that's why if you get their home email address, you know, it's good to touch that database of candidates every couple of months. Give them an article of interest and a listing of all the opportunities you have. You'd be amazed at how many candidates that generates when you do that bi-monthly. Next is developing rapport and trust. You know, I talked about not developing rapport, control. It's all about rapport and trust. Sixth is you've got to provide job opportunities faster than your competition. You know, and the only way you can do that is if you're pipelining people in advance, so that the minute you write a job, you've already got people in mind that you know fit the job. You've got to really look at the type of opportunities you're representing and pipeline talent in advance of getting orders, so that you can react faster than anybody else. You want to try to be their lifetime agent. Contracts are not lifetime contracts. They might have a contract for 9 months, a year, 2 years, but when they're off, you want them to see the benefit of utilizing you. Are you telling people, I'd love to be your lifetime career agent? That's what I would love to do. Tell me where you want to be in 10 years. I'll help you get there. And then you, of course, want to establish a network of IT and engineering talent. You know, you let them know that if I don't have anything currently that I think is what you've described to me, I'm not going to waste your time, but when that job does come across my desk, you're the first person I'm going to contact. And see, when you're making recruiting calls, the last benefit, the ninth benefit, and the ninth goal in recruiting is basically you're advertising yourself, your niche, and your firm. You're getting your name out there. There are endless recruiting methods that work. You need to write down various scripts and use them during your presentations, because eventually you're going to find a method that best fits your personality. You know, if you don't sound enthusiastic during your recruiting presentations, you're never going to attain the level of success you desire, because people want to be represented by a recruiter who enjoys their job, who they're going to enjoy working with. And so your personality and positive attitude must come across during every single presentation you do. During every single presentation you do, you definitely want to, show them that you really want to represent them. The other thing, too, is when you're making recruiting presentations, often they think you're asking them, who do you know that's above average? They think you want them to give you names of their current coworkers, and they're very uncomfortable doing that. And often when you're asking people, who do you know, they say, I don't know anybody. Well, of course they know somebody. The reason they're not giving a name to you is they don't know you, they don't trust you, they don't necessarily like you, so they're not going to give you a name. And so I want to give you 6 words that are going to double or triple the number of recruits that you get. And those 6 words are from your last place of employment. If you ask, who was the best .NET developer from your last place of employment? Who was the best project manager from your last place of employment? Who was the best project engineer from your last place of employment? When you add those 6 words on, they can't say, I don't know anybody, because of course they know who the best person was at their last place of employment. So write those 6 words down and use them, because it results in you getting names. And they just have to get comfortable. And what you're telling is, I just want to network with people. If I network with enough people, they will lead me eventually to the type of talent that I'm looking for. And so that's non-threatening. It's not like they're giving you the name of somebody who's looking for a job. They're just sharing a name with somebody that you're going to network with, just like you're networking with them. Now, I've got some additional suggestions to improve your recruiting skills. The more successful you are at addressing the what's in it for me issue, the more successful your recruiting efforts will be. Just always know that every person you talk to has WIIFM tattooed in big black letters on their forehead, and you have to address that at all times. This is how they will benefit by talking to you. This is how they will benefit if they send you their resume or CV. This is how they will benefit if they, take time to interview with you. They've got to understand the benefit to them. Next, number 2, if your current calls are not providing results, okay, then what you need to do is you need to be open to change your approach and verbiage. You know, even if you just record the calls, listen to what you're saying. If you're not getting results, it's not that nobody's looking. It's not that nobody will make a change. You're not making the right calls. The calls you're making are not enticing people. So don't blame the marketplace. Don't convince yourself that nobody's looking. Of course they are. Job dissatisfaction is at historic highs right now. You know, you got to change your approach, and you've got to be ready to overcome at least 3 objections with each recruiting presentation. If you don't do that, then you're not making sales calls. You're not making recruiting calls. You're making customer service calls. Because once you've mastered the basics of making effective recruiting calls, you know, and you know how to call and who to call, you don't have to schedule as many calls because you're going to get many more hits. You know, your ratios just start going down. But you've got to schedule time to make recruiting presentations daily. I don't care how busy you are, you've got to make them daily. You've got to block out at least 90 minutes to 2 hours a day minimum to go out there and see who else is in the marketplace. And often the jobs you're recruiting on now, by the time you recruit the candidates, the job is filled or the contract is filled, but you're pipelining for the future contracts and orders that are going to be written. And also, when making recruiting calls, it's important to develop the attitude, so what now, what next? See, the person you contacted didn't know you. They didn't understand what you could have done for them, because if they did, okay, they would have wanted you to represent them. So now you've got to go back to your recruiting presentation and make changes, because they didn't see the benefit to them. They didn't see the benefit of what you offer. And sometimes it's just a matter of timing. I did real estate before I did staffing and recruiting, and I can remember it was just drummed in our heads. Location, location, location. And that's why I'm trying to drum in your head. Timing, timing, timing. Location has somewhat to do with the decisions our candidates make, but it really is about timing. We have to catch the candidates at the right time. Will they need you in the future? The answer is yes. 100% of them can use your services in the future. That's why you got to leave a great impression. That's why you want to leave your name and number with everybody. And by the way, even if they say they're not interested, I'd love you to take down my name and number, because so many people have told me in the past that they don't take my name and number down, and then I hang up, and then they think of somebody. Or then all of a sudden something happens to them, and they could have utilized my services. So I'd love you to take my name and number down. And then when you repeat it, you give them your name and your number. You and I both know they're not writing it down. So you've always got to follow that up with, you know what, I talk kind of fast. Can you read my number back to me, because I want to make sure I gave you the right number. Almost always they will say, you know what, you're right. You were talking so fast. I didn't get the last 2 numbers down. Can you repeat it? When you repeat it, they write it down because they're afraid you're going to ask them to read it back again. So always repeat your name and phone number twice. One time, and then say, you know what, can you read it back to me? I want to make sure that you got it correctly. And now the second time, they will write it down because they will need you. They might not know it, but they will need you in the future, because everybody will. People are not going to stay at their jobs and retire 30 years later with a gold watch. Those days don't even exist anymore. Lastly, add passion to your recruiting presentation. I can tell you that every TSA conference I go to, I can always tell who the most successful recruiters are, because you can just feel their presence. I can feel their presence when they're in my room, when I'm training. I can feel their presence when I'm doing a prep class. I can tell who's in the prep class who are really high achievers, because they're passionate about everything. They're passionate about their job. They're passionate about getting certified. They're passionate about being at the conference. If you want to be a lifetime agent to your candidates, you've got to show them you're passionate about what you do, and you've got to put passion into your presentations. They need to experience, they need to feel, they need to sense the passion that you have about the recruiting profession. And lastly, you want to treat everyone that you interact with in the same way that you would want them to treat you. And even a step further, treat them how they want to be treated. You know, they will not only become loyal to you, they're going to send you referrals. You know, add passion in your recruiting presentations, and you will add money to your paycheck. So not only are you going to have more hits, you know, people are going to like you more, you're going to be more successful. And think about this, you know, what if I was sitting across your desk since January 3rd of this year, and I've just been working in your office. I've been doing some training in your office, and I've been observing you work your desk since January. And now I'm going to give you a grade on a level of 1 to 10 about your level of dedication, your passion, your enthusiasm when you're on the phones talking to candidates. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you grade? Because anything less than an 8 is really not good, because you've got to be at a level 10 every day. You've got people's lives in your hands. You know, every job that you write that doesn't get filled is a negative reflection on you. It's a negative reflection on the account executive that wrote the order. It's a negative reflection on your company and on the owner of your company. Because when people give us contracts and people give us orders, their expectation is that we're going to fill them. When a candidate sends you their resume or CV, they assume 100% of them think you're going to find them a job, when in essence we only place less than 5% of the people we attract. But it's the way they're treated that determine how they talk about you on social media and if they're going to send you referrals or not. Even if you don't place somebody, they will still send you referrals if their experience was positive, if you gave them alternatives, if you gave them other things they could do. You know, so it's all about your level of commitment, your passion, your attitude, but then it's your skill set. What I would suggest all of you do is go through this handout. There's a lot of information on this handout. You know, what you have to do prior to the recruiting presentations, the motivators, you know, how do you differentiate, you know, and tips on how you can, you know, get more hits with your recruiting presentations. Go through this handout and identify 3 areas that you think you need to improve, and implement one of those changes this month. So in June, implement one change, because if you don't do something for 21 days, it doesn't become a new habit. If you don't have enough candidates to represent, and by the way, every time you hear yourself say there's no talent, this is ridiculous, we can't find people, there's no talent. Every time you hear yourself saying that or thinking that, you got to follow that up with thank you, God, because this is the best marketplace for us. If it was easy to find talent, no one would need us. And so when it's a candidate-driven marketplace, that's when you can be the most successful. And so you want to make sure that every time you hear yourself, you know, say that, oh, it's so hard to find people, then follow it up with thank you. Just thank you. Because if it's hard for me, it's hard for everybody, and I'm just going to get great at this. But there are 8 out of 10 people out there hate their jobs. Job dissatisfaction is at historic highs. They're waiting for your phone call. You just got to make them. And recruiting presentations are where you get the candidates that everybody wants to hire, that hidden marketplace of talent that's working, they're happy, but they'll make a change for the right opportunity. And it's amazing how many candidates that are working full-time now want to work contract. You know, by the year 2020, 50% of the workforce, according to Career Builder, is not going to be working the traditional 40-hour work week. Do you know what that does for you as a recruiter? Like, all this is such good news for you. I was at a talent acquisition conference, and they announced that the graduates that graduated in 2015, that by the time they are 34 years old, they will have had 14 jobs and 3 career changes. And I could just hear the talent acquisition people gasp. Like, what did you just say? They went, huh? You know, and I'm sitting in the back of the room trying not to show how happy I was with that, because that's great for our profession. You're in the best job at the best time in history. You just have to change little subtle changes. You can't work your desk the same way day in, day out, and expect different results. If you don't like the results in the first 5 months of this year, what changes are you willing to make? There's a price to pay if you want to be more successful. What are you willing to do in the next 7 months to be the top recruiter in your company? Because really your future lies in your hands. It's what are you willing to do? What changes are you willing to make? And we've given you quite a few during this presentation that you can implement. Now, I also want to make an announcement, because the second edition of the CPSR and CPSAE exams are going to be released on July 1. If any of you have signed up to take certification and you have not taken the exam yet, you need to do it now. You've got 1 month to study, and even if you're brand new signed up, you've got 1 month to study to take the current exam. After July 4th, there will be more information that you must learn and new questions on the exam, because we added new chapters in both CPSR and CPSAE. Now, if you take the exam before July 1st, you might say, well, I want the new information. You're going to get it anyway. So any of the new information, we're going to do webinars basically for everybody that's certified before July 1st on the new information. You just won't be tested on it, but you will have the information in your hand. So there is no better time to sign up and take the exam. Plus, the passing score is going up. The current passing score is 70, and the passing score is going up to 80 as of July 1st. So if you've signed up and you've not taken the exam, trust me, the best time to do it is right now. Stop procrastinating. You've got more than enough time, even if you haven't logged in at all, okay? It's only the 9th. You've got enough time to read those study materials twice, Read it once, skim through it, just read it. The second time, take some notes, and I'm telling you, if you do this, you're going to be thrilled you did it. And if you've already signed up, you might as well take the exam while the passing score is lower, and now you don't have to wait to get all the additional new information after July 1st that gives you additional studying to do. And we're going to give you that information anyway. So, I just want to make sure that all of you realize you will have that new information. So any of you that are on the fence, please, realize that the email addresses are right on this screen, where if you have any questions or you want to sign up, you're not signed up now, and you want to sign up, now's the time to sign up. Those of you that have taken level 1 that are listening to my call, I really encourage you to sign up for level 2. Level 2 is tougher, but it really tests your knowledge because it's the same study materials, but now we're going to give you real-life scenarios. We're giving you real-life, case studies, and you have to read the case study and answer the questions, and the answers to the questions are not in the case study. The answers to the questions are in your study guide, and so you have to apply the knowledge that you've learned, which really tests if you know this knowledge. So I do encourage anybody to do this. And now I want to open the lines for questions. You can ask me questions one of two ways, and the question can be about consultative recruiting or anything that's important to you. I do these calls live for TechServe, number one, because I really respect TechServe. They are by far my favorite association. And secondly, because I want to help every one of you on the phone. I'm a trainer so you can make more money. So any question you have is important to me. You can ask me questions one of two ways. You can go to the attendee list and you can find your name. And if you called in and you put the call-in number, the access code, and the PIN number, then we can literally unmute your line. Shannon, I see you've got a hand up. I'll unmute your line and let you answer the question. Or if you'd rather type a question, and you can go below, about 3/4 of the way down, you see the word questions. Click that plus sign and open that. It'll be a dialog box. If you don't want me to use your name, put confidential or anonymous and type in any questions, and I'd be glad to answer them. So let me unmute Shannon. Okay, Shannon, your line is unmuted. What question did you have? Shannon, with the last name starting with an A, you clicked on the hand icon. Did you have a question? I think Shannon may have clicked that by mistake. Okay, let's see here. I see another hand up. Deborah. Okay, Deborah, I've unmuted your line. Did you have a question?
Hi, Barb. Yes,
hi.
This is Deborah. Referral bonuses and the best way. I love everything that you said about the 6 words. Remember that I'm working on now, referral bonus plans and the best one. And I think we talked before about how people share the bonuses and if there should be bonuses. And I get that building on trust and report terms, you don't have to pay bonuses, but would you speak to that a little bit?
Okay, Deborah, are you talking about bonuses inside your office or something that you're going to pay somebody that gives you a referral?
The latter. Paying someone who gives us a referral.
Right. I think that it's really important to figure out, number one, there has to be a budget for it, and if you're going to pay any type of incentive or bonus to people that are giving you referrals, then you have to take that off the gross margin of profit or off the fee before you're going to pay commissions. You can't be paying the same level of commissions or bonuses or incentives if you're paying out some type of referral program. I believe that some of the best ones are gift certificates rather than money, and the reason I believe that are gift cards, because money you've got to tax and you're going to end up with 1099s and all kinds of other things unless you're paying very high referral fees, and some of the IT full-time placements. I find it interesting that some candidates are actually asking recruiters, if I send you somebody, what type of bonus are you paying? And so it's getting to be commonplace now, and so people are expecting something. And it depends on the level you place. I think you've got to look at what is your gross margin of profit and what percentage of that are you willing to give up. And you're only going to pay a referral if, in fact, somebody sends you somebody that you actually place out on a contract or on a full-time job. And then there have to be parameters around it. Are they on the contract for 30 days before you pay the referral bonus? So you've got to protect yourself there too, Deborah, because what happens sometimes, I've had some owners say that they were paying bonuses right up front the minute they would place somebody, and then the person, contractors are not staying necessarily the duration of their contract right now. They're being wooed away, and you've got to make sure that you're not paying for a referral, and then a week later the person takes off. So I think the best referral programs are simple. They have to have a theme to them. I believe, like ours is Got Friends, and the reason I use got friends. I've had other ones that I've done, and for some strange reason, it's easy. It's 2 words. Everybody has friends, you know, and they're not thinking of it as somebody who is looking for a job. Everybody has friends that are looking for jobs. So our program is just, and I think it needs to be structured. You need to, if you're going to have a strong referral program, you need to have everybody in your organization promoting the referral program. You have to know when in the recruiting process you're going to ask for referrals. And then you've got to see in your geographic area and in your niche, what are some of your competitors paying? You know, and so do a little bit of research and see what is being done out there. But I find that people love gift cards. They love gift cards. And you can tell them you'll give them an X amount of dollar worth of gift card, and they can pick the type of gift card they want, or you get them a Visa or a whatever, you know, gift card that they can use anywhere. But, you know, I find that gift cards are very, very effective. And the other thing, too, is what you might think of, Deborah, and I think the reason that our referral program is so strong is we have an event at the end of every year. And anybody that has given us a referral that we've placed in a job gets invited to the event. Now, I work the Chicagoland market, so it's easy for me because geographically my people are all together. This would be tough if you're, you know, if you're placing nationwide. But if you're placing in a local market, we have an event, and anybody that gave us a referral, it's a wine and cheese party at an Italian restaurant. We have appetizers and that. And then everybody that has given us a referral, we put their name in. We have our accounting company actually come to this. And everybody signs their name on however many referrals they gave us that we placed in jobs. So if you gave me 3 referrals I placed out, then you have 3 tickets in the bowl. And then at the end of the evening, we have our accountant pick out a ticket, and then we give a trip away. And we've done that every year for the past 15 years. The Chicago Tribune once did a whole article on our referral program and how people won a trip. And then at that event, then they vote on where they want to go next year. Like for the last 3 years, they've picked Cabo, you know, and so, and the trip caught for 2 people, you know, for 4 nights and 5 days, I think it is, runs me under $5,000 for 2 people, including flights, rooms, everything, okay? It is the best $5,000 I spend because it gets so many people to want to give referrals. We have people call that gave us referrals that weren't placed and asked if they could come because they gave us a referral, but we didn't place them. We don't know. That's not how it works. You know, so, and I'm not, and again, recruiters on this phone, please do not go to your owners after this call and say, Barbara Bruno said that we've got to pay for referrals and now we have to give a trip away. I mean, you know, and again, guys, if you're listening to me and you're a recruiter, whatever these costs are, these come off of the profits before you're paid your commissions. So you got to have some skin in the game too. But these are just some things you can do, you know, but it's got to be consistent. It's got to be consistent. And does it graduate? Like if somebody sends you 1 referral, do they get X amount of dollars? And if they send you 2, does it go up? And if they send you 3, does it go up? And then where does it top off? Because then that encourages them to send you more throughout the year because they're getting a higher gift, you know, a gift card than they would, and it goes back down to the original price after January 1. So there's got to be incentives, but it has to be promoted. I don't care what you're offering if your whole team is not promoting it. Like in our, you know, like now I have an office in Indiana. I don't have the big office in Chicago anymore. Many of my people are virtual, but when we had the office in Chicago, we had posters all over the office about the trip. You know, when we would send people things, we'd send them flyers of where the trip was. You know, so even in their paychecks, they were getting a flyer on the trip. You want to qualify for the trip, give us a referral. You know, so it wasn't only the what they were getting for each referral. Then they could be part of the drawing for the trip. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be a trip. It could be, I don't know, it could be an iPad. It could be whatever you want it to be. But if there's something at the end that they qualify for each referral, that becomes an, even if you're not paying what other people are paying for the referrals, but there's a pretty nice thing that they might win, I think that works very well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very nice. Very nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did I answer all your questions?
For me,
okay.
yes.
All right, I'm going to mute you out, Deb. Nice talking to you, by the way.
You too.
Okay, I'm going to block her. Let me see if there's any other hands being raised. Let's see here. Okay, let me go to the questions. Okay, the first question I have is, can I really, this is from Sarah, can I really sign up and pass by July 1st? Absolutely. Absolutely you could. Because, you know, what I suggest to everybody is you go through the study materials once, you just blaze through them. There's industry practices, and then there's legal, and then there's industry practices and legal are the same for both exams. And then you've got the CPSR for recruiters, CPSAE for account executives. So, all of you are going to take the same industry practices and the same legal. Then you go to where you specialize. If you signed up today and got the study materials, you could absolutely get through them and pass the exam. And you and I both know that we're kind of procrastinators. People in our profession, we just are. We're salespeople. We don't like details. We don't like to do things. But if you make the commitment, even if you don't do it by July 1st, chances are when you decide to do it, you're going to do it within a month. You're going to wait until it's right before the time for the exam, and then you're going to study. So why not do it now? So can you do it? The answer is absolutely yes. Okay, that was the only question I got. Is there anything else, Jenny, any questions you're getting or anything that you wanted to add? Because I don't see any more questions in the queue.
Yeah, Barb, we have a question coming across Twitter here, and it's about the new exam, and if they wait until July 1st, can you go over what the new exam materials are going to cover in a little more detail?
Right. The new exam, basically, we had to give, in the legal part of it, we had to give more about, the Healthcare Reform Act, obviously, because, you've got that really impacting everybody right now. So on the legal side, much of the new materials are on the Healthcare Reform Act. And in the actual exam itself, we upgraded some of the areas, and then we put more on social media. We put more on sourcing, and we have to be careful because we want the exam to have a shelf life. We don't want the exam to be, aged 1 month after, where all of a sudden things are changing. So we try to give, good information that was going to be there, long term, but that would give you more information on just social media and sourcing and those things. And basically the new material in the exam were at the request of the owners, who had people take the certification exam and ask why a couple things weren't in it. And so basically this was not us sitting down and deciding, gee, we think we need to put this in the exam. Once you're part of the program, we go out and survey and find out what do you think should be in it. And so the areas in the new exam are really, from the owners that had people go through the exam itself. Industry practices stayed the same, because those don't change. The industry practices pretty much stayed the same. But it's the legal and then the CPSR and CPSAE that we updated, the healthcare reformed, and then social media as well as sourcing. Those are in the new exam. I do see another hand come up now. Shannon, let me unmute you. Shannon, did you have a question? Shannon with the last name A, did you have a question? Okay, let me mute her out. Was there anything else, Jenny, that you've got on Twitter or any of the other?
That was the only question that I'm seeing. But okay. Our next session is going to be Overcome Client Objections. And can you speak more to what you'll be covering there? I have it down for 4 categories of objections, 1 of 2 choices to make, why objections are buying signs, and top 5 client objections with effective responses.
Right. What I can tell you is that I speak in front of audiences of hiring authorities all the time, and they basically have shared with me that they think it's funny that they can give 2 or 3 objections to most recruiters, and they can give 2 or 3 objections to your outside salespeople when they're making their sales calls, and basically they walk out the door. And if they're being called on the phone, they give 2 or 3 objections why they're not going to set up a face-to-face, and most recruiters hang up, or account executives hang up and never call back again. And so I have the advantage of speaking to these hiring authorities and getting their vantage point. And basically, they've shared with me, when a recruiter really is good, when an account executive is good at overcoming our objections, then we know they're good. We know they know how to sell. They're probably going to do a better job for us. And now we know they really want our business. And bottom line, what they say to me is most people call on us and tell us they want our business. We give them 2 or 3 of the same objections. They go, oh, they hang up the phone and we never hear from them again. So how bad did they really want our business? These are all things that we're going to address in the next webinar. So it really is a very strong webinar. Anybody that is interacting with clients, whether you're an account executive or you're a recruiter that is, presenting candidates and they're objecting on who you're presenting, anybody that interacts with clients at all, that this webinar is going to really give you some sound advice and some sound answers and responses that you can keep the conversation going and hopefully land the person as your client.
And that webinar will be July 14th at 12:30 Eastern Time, by the way. And then the only other announcement I have is that we sent out our most recent issue of Beyond Certification today. If you did not receive it, feel free to email us at certification@techservealliance.org, and we'll go ahead and forward that to you. Now, Barb, I'd like to say thank you on behalf of TechServe Alliance and everyone else attending. Thank you very much for another wonderful webinar, Barb.
Well, I enjoy them just as much, and the big thing is step one is attending these webinars. The more important step is what are you going to implement when you hang up the phone. So please go through the handout, pick something you're going to change, because this call really is a waste of your time unless you make a change. You know, it's one thing to like the information, it's another thing to use it to get better at what you do, you know, and my goal is that all of you are going to be more successful and, you know, and just make more money as a result of coming to these calls. So I greatly appreciate so many people showing up for these webinars, and I'd love to hear your success stories. You know, any of you that are on these calls, if you're implementing, you know, things, please send them to TechServe, because we would love to know what ideas are resonating most with all of you, and we'd love to include your testimonials on some of the TechServe Alliance sites. So please share what's working, because we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, and one thing I love about these webinars that you do, Barb, is the time you leave open for questions. We can't emphasize enough. Feel free to write down questions or mail them throughout the month as they come up, and we'll even save them for you for these calls so that way we can get them addressed for you. And it's always open to do role plays and scenarios if you're stuck on something on your desk. So I encourage you to write down ideas for these calls because we're having them every month for you. So everyone will be sending out an email with today's slides and a link to today's presentation, along with a link to the certification webpage. You can also get the slides right now under the Handouts tab in your toolbar box on the right side of your screen. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a wonderful day.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.